When Cobbs gets wind of the fact that an attorney by the name of Gene Lewis has been visiting Morris, he shoots down to investigate. Just as Russell, aka Gene Lewis, is quietly slipping out. Cobbs is shocked to discover how often Russell has tempted fate, coolly walking in and out of the dragon's jaws.
We found out he'd done that on more than one occasion.
As Gene Lewis, Stephen Russell has visited the jail more than a dozen times.
He just got one over on everybody.
Cobbs stakes out the jail, but Russell never returns. That's because he's at a bank in Dallas, masquerading as real-life millionaire Arthur Sandler, and about to make a hefty withdrawal from Sandler's account. $75,000 worth. Enough to hire the best lawyer money can buy and finally get Morris out of jail. But the bank manager notices that some of Russell's numbers and personal data don't perfectly match the files they have on Arthur Sandler.
So they start doing a few checks and a few things don't add up.
Suspicious, the bank manager has his staff contact security. Russell overhears their conversation.
He saw what was going on and knew he had to get out of it.
Cornered like a rat, the king of cons comes up with a rather unique idea.
Fell on the floor, had a heart attack, and they called an ambulance.
The bank's top security man takes over the case.
It was very obvious that it was bogus. He was no more having a heart attack than I was. Dallas police officer that was there told us that their policy was that if he claimed to be having a heart attack or chest pains, they were required to call an ambulance.
And they had already called the FBI, and the FBI was en route to investigate this bank fraud that they knew was going on.
He's placed in the ambulance and taken to Baylor Hospital in Dallas.
The ambulance had taken him away to the hospital when the FBI arrived. And of course the bank told him, well, we just sent him to the hospital. He had a heart attack.
The FBI leave to meet up with Russell at the hospital.
The FBI had called the hospital and told the security there, we're on our way. Secure this guy the best way you can until we get there. He's involved in some criminal activity.
And while he was in the examining room, a police officer was stationed outside the examining room.
But the authorities have made a key mistake. They've left Russell unattended. Taking advantage of the situation, the king of cons reaches for the most powerful weapon in his arsenal, his telephone.
Hey, it's Victor Thomas calling.
Stephen Russell had a cell phone with him.
Hey, you're the fellow by the name of Stephen Russell.
He called the hospital himself from the hospital on his cell phone and told the hospital that he was from the FBI office.
Told them that he was the FBI office calling and they had changed their mind. They did not want to interview him and that they could release him at any time.
You can go. Are you sure you can go?
His orders come in loud and clear. Stephen Russell is free to go.
Okay, go.
The king of cons has fooled an entire hospital staff, the Dallas police, and the FBI.
There you go.
That's great. Thank you.
Just walked out. Told him I'm fine, I'm not having a heart attack, and got up and walked out.
Then the FBI arrived and asked the hospital, where's our guy at? And they said, well, what do you mean? You just called us and told us to release him. He just left.
And he's on the run again.
Over the next few weeks, despite their best efforts, Investigator Cobbs, the FBI, and various Texas law enforcement teams lose Stephen Russell's trail completely.
We had hit a stone wall. Everything had dried up. We hadn't heard a peep out of him.
Cobbs is forced to shift strategies. He starts to think like his prey. From past experience, he knows that Russell likes to stay in cheap motels.
We knew that Stephen Russell had about 14 known aliases. So we checked not only Stephen Russell, but all of those known aliases and started finding those aliases registered in those motels. We asked for the phone records of all the phone calls that had been made and received to those rooms while he was there. And I started going over those phone records. And if there was a number that came up that I didn't recognize, I would just call it. And I would ask, what kind of business is this? What do you do?
With one particular number, Cobbs finally hits the jackpot.
The lady said, well, we're an insurance company. Well, knowing that is right up Stephen Russell's alley, right his forte. He's been involved in many insurance frauds in the past.
Cobbs learns that the woman was just about to fax a patient's personal medical file to a lawyer by the name of Gene Lewis.
And I said, well, okay, don't send that fax. Give me the fax number that you're going to send it to. I said, you have a fraud basically in progress right now.
Cobbs traces the fax number from the insurance company to an address in South Florida.
I called my counterpart with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Richard Dees.
A lead investigator in the murder case of fashion designer Johnny Versace, Agent Dees is no rookie when it comes to hunting down bad guys.
When you approach the case, you want to know as much as you can possibly about the individual that you're hunting down.
I said, Rick, if you'll find this phone number and get set up on it, I'll call the guy back and tell him to send the fax. And then all you have to do is wait for Stephen Russell to walk up to receive his fax.
Acting quickly, Dees traces the fax number to Sunrise, Florida. An endless sea of malls, parking lots, and safe-gated communities.
It's in suburbs of Fort Lauderdale. He was definitely in a very nice apartment complex. I was just there to basically do some surveillance and gather some local intelligence as to what the setup is of the apartment complex.
But as luck would have it, on entering the property, Dees comes face to face with a man who appears to fit the description of the Texas fugitive.
So as I'm driving through trying to find the address, I see what appears to be him. I was a little concerned that he may have recognized me as I went by, but as I passed him, I looked in the rearview mirror. He took one look and didn't look a second time.
Dees calls in for backup.
Jenny, patch me through to Tom Maxwell, please.
With reinforcement on its way, Agent Dees suddenly has another concern. The man's vehicle doesn't seem to match the information Dees has on file.
It supposedly had Texas plates. Well, in Texas, you have tags on the front and the rear of the vehicle. It had no plates on the front.
Looking to confirm the plate number, he checks the vehicle's registration sent to him by Cobbs, just as backup arrives.
Agent Tom Maxwell was the first one to get to me.
Dees instructs Maxwell to check and see what plate the suspect has on the rear of his vehicle.
Tom got out of the car, out of his vehicle, and walked along the sidewalk and verified that it did still have the Texas tag on the rear.
Plate is Texas. It's Lima Uniform 6797, over. That's our boy. That's the plate we're looking for.
Now there can be no doubt. The man they've got in their sights is none other than the King of Cons. Rather than rush the building, he decides to play it cool.
You don't want to go into his apartment because you don't know what type of weapons he may have. You don't want him inside of his vehicle because obviously he could be an endangerment to to the whole community if he was able to drive away. So you want to catch him on foot somewhere between the apartment and the vehicle. That's kind of the ideal place.
There's someone coming out the front door right now.
Minutes later, as if on cue, Agent Dees gets his wish. For the cops, it's now or never.
That's our guy. It's showtime. Let's go get him, Tom.
I had to pull out of the parking spot. It was probably 100 yards away.
The agents catch Russell completely off guard.
We cuffed the wrong guy.
And we approached him and cuffed him. Well, I asked him who he was, and he gave me the alias that he was under at the time.
Your name? Everett Walcott.
I opened his wallet, and in the wallet he had a driver's license in the name of Edward Walcott.
That's what it says here.
And I told him that that was not his name, that his name was Stephen J. Russell. He indicated he didn't know a Stephen J. Russell.
Take him, put him in my car.
Dees discovers just how close Russell was from disappearing forever. Russell was about to meet with a plastic surgeon to alter his appearance for good.
Planning to change your face as well.
In a few days, Russell would have been unrecognizable and unstoppable.
So I got on the cell phone and called Terry Cobbs, told him that I had Russell in custody.
And in disbelief, I said, "What do you mean you've got him?" And he said, "I've got him."
Terry seemed to be very surprised that he was in custody. I think I had to tell him 2 or 3 times.
I know who you're talking to.
I could hear him in the background, and he was saying something like, "I know who you're talking to. You're talking to Cobbs." I just told Rick, I said, "Yeah, tell Russell that's exactly who you're talking to."
Yeah, he says to say hello.
The color kind of left his face.
Finally, after nearly a month on the run, Terry Cobbs has his man. But how are they going to keep him behind bars this time? Locked up once again in a Texas prison, authorities make sure Stephen Russell never walks free again. After years of stealing millions and breaking out of 4 Texas prisons, Stephen Russell, a.k.a. Dr. Adam Rios, a.k.a. Gene Lewis, a.k.a. Arthur Sandler, has spent the last 7 years in the Michael Unit in Tennessee Colony, Texas. In prison, Russell will have a lot of time to think about his life on the run.
If you're an escapee and you're on the run and someone is chasing you down, I would say that I would consider that person a nemesis because they're trying to get you. And you're trying to stay out there and you're trying to stay away from it.
Russell continues to be in touch with the love of his life, Philip Morris.
We write each other every week. So everything's still the same. It's just, you know, I'm in prison and he has to come visit me now as opposed to me visiting him.
Because of his history, Russell is kept in solitary confinement in a cell 6 feet by 7. He's only allowed out 1 hour each day, and each time he's strip searched. Twice a week he's moved to a new cell. He is never left out of anybody's sight.
Every time Terry calls, I just ask him one question, and that is, you know, where is Stephen Russell? Do you know where he is? And usually he responds, yes, I do. And he is safely in the Michaels unit, and I'm positive of that.
At age 40, Stephen Russell won't be eligible for parole until his 120th birthday, unless he decides to leave sooner.
I'm sure that he's still thinking about his next escape. I'm sure he is.
Every system, every facility, it doesn't make any difference whether it's a jail or it's a prison. Every system has weaknesses. And it's just a paying attention thing, you know, watching what other people do.
So have you spotted some in here?
Yes.